Hello, 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 hello. I'm making another video in the garden because I don't have friends. I don't have friends to talk to about the Mandela effect. So I use my computer then for that. Because this is not just some kind of laissez-faire statement. This is the truth. This is the full truth and the absolute truth. I have nobody, not even one person, to talk to about the occult and philosophy and psychology and these things that are very interesting to me. All of these subjects. I have nobody to talk to. I don't know. I would have to, if I was alone, I don't know, I probably would go back to school and go back to university and sign up, but I don't have money even to go there. So I don't know what I would do. What I could do. Maybe hang out at the public library and read people's smeared up books. Smeared up with their dirty fingers. So books that smell bad, that have been wiped with poop fingers. And then real rude librarians and I don't know, but I don't know. I would have to do it. I have to go to a library and just hang out there and read books and hope that I could find someone to talk to, But I would have to overcome a lot of OCD to do this. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm here now. Here at home. I don't leave the house unless we go back to the other house. So because we have two residences, that forces me to get out of the house. I can't otherwise get out of the house because I have bad OCD, and it is a form of mental illness that is a reaction. It's an understandable reaction to severe trauma. And it's not just the trauma from the past, but it is the trauma that I experience. It's like an ongoing, like a basso continuo of traumatization that I experience because of my animal rights activism. So doing animal rights activism, particularly for those people, particularly for people like myself and my friend Sandy, people like us who are highly sensitive, it is usually those highly sensitive people that are even doing animal rights activism. It's the people out there that are kind of very hardy and kind of callous a little bit. Those people usually don't go on the internet and sign petitions. Those people usually, that's none of their problem, and let others deal with it, and, whatever. And it's not important to them. They're more concerned with money and with their personal gains and pleasures and so on. It's the highly sensitive people that are going out there, out of their way to help others and to sign petitions, and also some of them get involved with local politics and different actions to help animals and help innocents in general. So it's those type of people that are very, very sensitive, that are often then getting into the animal petitions, reading the information that comes out of that, learning about the ongoing suffering of animals worldwide, but in particular the suffering of animals that hasn't even been made illegal, because that's the suffering of animals in animal agriculture and what they call animal enterprises, which is the use of animals in different professions. Okay? They made that legal. They sure made themselves exempt from the animal cruelty law. And that's where the problem is. That's where the problem comes in. Seeing this unimaginable suffering of animals that are being exploited by farmers, by commercial farms, particularly factory farms, and by laboratories testing drugs on innocent living beings, breeding animals for that purpose, causing terrible suffering and agony and loneliness and despair. I talked about this before. There was a mother bear who euthanized her baby by cutting into the baby's aorta, and then cut her own main blood vessels in her arm, and so made her baby and herself die right there in a laboratory. That was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I mean, I have seen the photos, and I read the story behind it. That was really, it was devastating for me when I read that. And many other horrible things, absolute horror that is going on with the so-called animal enterprises, the animal exploitation. Absolute horror. And people aren't even allowed to blow the whistle on it. They have created laws to put whistleblowers behind bars and all of that. They have put an animal rights activist, that was already like 20 years ago. He was about to blow the whistle on a radio station about fur farms. He had all the information gathered, everything. And I know for sure that the spying, for example, on the internet has been going on for much longer than we think. It may have been going on for more than 20 years. This really intense spying on people. I don't know about camera, but definitely microphone spying. That has been going on for much longer. So they knew all about that activist. I think his name was Joe. And they knew what he was planning, and so it was just like a day or two before he was going on that radio station when they went and raided his apartment. And they fraudulently got a search warrant, which they don't even have any reason for it. But this is how it goes with corruption. The corrupt people, they bribe their way through the instances, through legislative offices, and they get their search warrants granted and free pass for whatever they want to do. CIA, FBI, all of that, completely infiltrated, gutted, and corrupted. So they took all of his computer equipment, everything, and they took him to a FEMA detention camp in Arizona, and he stayed there for half a year. An innocent man who was just practicing his freedom of speech. I wrote him, he wrote back, he's a very nice person. He said, never get discouraged, always keep on working on animal liberation, on animal rights, getting better animal rights laws signed. Okay. Never give up. Always keep going. I hope he's doing well. I haven't heard from him anymore since then. But there are a few people in this world that are out there like him, and that will do whatever they can within the framework of our legal system. They do whatever they can. They will never give up, and neither will I, no matter how devastated I am over it, no matter how much I cry every day, no matter how much I suffer through this. And sometimes I can't even cry, sometimes I'm in just a shock, and I just sit there. But I always work my way through. I work my way through with meditation. And when I sit with it and talk about this, whether I talk about it here on the computer or I talk to Paul about it, then eventually the tears come, and then I let the tears roll for as long as it takes. It can sometimes take for more than an hour, the crying. And sometimes I cry a whole lot of tears, like enormous amount of tear liquid, water, tear water pouring out of my eyes. Crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And it's okay. I cry for the whole world. I cry with the whole world. And that's what I do, and it's okay to do it. And I also cry for myself too, of course, because it is also it's very difficult. I remember this one guy that I met once. He came here, they were gonna do some roofing work, but then Paul ended up not using them. But they came over one time, they came over a few times, and one time he came over and I happened to talk to him in the front yard. And it was that on that day, the very next door neighbors were moving out. And I told him how glad I was that they were moving out, because it's been like a year that we put up with these people. They were the husband is a police officer and extremely hostile. White man, are very hostile, very rigid-minded, of course. I'm sure he's extreme right-wing, but it's not so much the political view, of course. It is his mental illness, and it is a cluster B form of mental illness. It's a psychopathic type of mental illness. A lot of those people end up becoming law enforcement officers because their egos feel the need to have power over others and to control others. So, and that happens through all the ethnic groups. Okay, I mean, there's a difference in statistics, but most men, they're usually men, and the most violent of them. This is a statistical evaluation. I'm not making this up. The most violent are Middle Eastern and black males. Okay. And when they become police officers, they're causing the most harm, and they're causing all kinds of. They even rape people. They think they have the protection because of their profession, so nothing happens to them. They can just get away with anything, do anything. But anyway, this neighbor we had, he wasn't doing anything illegal, and he would also not shoot a dog, an innocent dog. That he wouldn't do. But he's one of those people that have a very rigid mind. And there are a lot of white people also that have a very, very rigid mind. And when they have such a rigid mind, and the ego is always involved with this, and the identification with whatever, the extreme right wing and their particular racism, they are all racist, all the demographics. Okay. So, but each racist group thinks that they have the truth on their side, okay? And it's always wrong. Racism is always wrong. Statistical evaluations, when it turns out, this demographic is more violent than the other. That's not racism. That's factual. That's a statistical evaluation. Okay? I just want to make this very crystal clear, so that this does not get misunderstood anymore. And I'm just reporting on it. And I have the right to report on it. But even people that are reporting on it are now being targeted. And so, again, it's also because of racism from the other side, right? So, and it's always like this. It seems to have always been like this throughout thousands of years. It's like one group that is different to the other group in some forms, then thinks the other group is wrong because of their differences, and back and forth. I mean, mutually. That's why it made me so mad that Muslim girl that I made friends with a while back, when I told her about what the Somali Muslim police officer did. He shot a white woman who just called the police. She saw him raping a girl. She didn't know that was him. He was raping a girl together with other Muslims, right there in the open. It was somewhere on the East Coast. And she calls the police, and he was the one on duty during that time. And he gets the call, and he's real mad that, first of all, that he was taken out of the raping, and that someone whistleblowed on him. He meets the woman that whistleblowed, takes the gun out and shoots her in the head. So I told the Muslim girl that. And I said, this is horrible. And why does the police officer, why is he acting? I wanted to hear from the Muslim girl whether she even puts her active mind into this and tries to understand and can see with a critical mind, right? And no, instead of looking at the police officer for what he has done, raping the girl and shooting the whistleblower, she takes his side and goes against me and says, well, I can explain to you why you are opposed to them. I learned that in psychology. It's because people are opposed to others that are different. blaming me for it. Telling me I'm the one that is racist, and that's how brainwashed she is. That's the extreme to how and she's from Canada, out there in Newfoundland, that area there. And these people, they must be so brainwashed. Not only are the Canadians very brainwashed already, but the Muslim Canadians, they are so brainwashed that they can't even see up or down, right or left. They can't see anything for what it is anymore. They can only see the other ones, the whistleblowers, are always wrong and racist. Okay, that's the only way they can see it. She lectures me on psychology. That's because they're different, and doesn't see the most obvious right in front of her eyes, that she is the very one projecting, that she's the very one doing this labeling, and not seeing the whole picture as it is. So, and before we talked about that, I told her about animal rights. I told her I'm an animal rights activist, and I told her about some of the projects and all of this and some of the petitions. And I told her that halal, which is Muslim slaughter, and kosher, which is Israeli slaughter, Jewish, Orthodox Jewish slaughter. Okay. Halal slaughter and kosher slaughter are extremely cruel, I told her. She writes back and says, yeah, I know that kosher slaughter is completely wrong, that needs to be outlawed. I wrote back, said, halal too. And she said, no, halal is okay. Halal is okay because it's Muslim based. That's how brainwashed she is. She's severely mentally ill, much more OCD and all of that than I have. I mean, real severe. She told me about it. Real severe suffering and mental illness. And all of that suffering and mental illness, that it just gets much worse when people are in a mental state of denial. It gets much worse. So I'm not in denial. So I am marching my way through life, trying to help, and it's difficult, and I have a trauma response, of course, with OCD, with overthinking, with catastrophizing, and with severe paranoia that turns out not even based on something I made up. It turns out to be based on something that's extremely real and factual. Okay, so my paranoia is based on reality. Okay, my mental illness reaction is based on reality. It's based on trauma. This girl is suffering 10,000 times worse than I am, because I wonder if she even cries. I wonder if she even gets any of this out of her system. I wonder if she even has anyone to talk to, because it seems like she is 100%, 1000% clinging to the very modality that made her insane, that made her crazy, that makes her suffer so much. A Muslim woman suffers the absolute worst. I mean, a Muslim woman is always a victim, is guaranteed, always, always. And if it's not physical, then it is at least mental, because she hears the family talk like this, where the man is on the throne and the women are the ones catering, and that can never be questioned. It is totally sexist, that religion. It's violent, it's cruel, and she can't see it. She can't see through it because she's brainwashed, and she identifies herself. Her ego is identified with her role as a Muslim woman. And here she is bisexual, and she's dating women and men. And she's not married, and she's not under someone's thumb, but she's under the thumb of this religion. And her parents are Muslims, and they keep reinforcing this and all of that. And she thinks that's truth, and the other one is not truth. They are victim, and the other one is perpetrator. That really breeds the worst type of mental state there is. This type of brainwashing and victimization. That's what unempowerment is. And that is what extreme mental illness is. She may not be personally a violent person. That's why we made friends in the first place, because she was into poetry, and I thought, I have someone to talk to, And then it turns out that she is so utterly brainwashed that she is not receptive to truth or any kind of actual introspection or exploration into philosophy. How can I talk to someone? And how can I feel like this is going somewhere when I meet someone and they say, yeah, I read Nietzsche or I read Schopenhauer or whatever, and then turns out that they haven't even understood a thing that these people said, right? Particularly Nietzsche, who was highly critical of any kind of particular think tank group, highly critical of any kind of persuasion bias or groupthink, or my haters call it echo chamber. Friedrich Nietzsche was opposed to that, 100%. And how can I talk to someone who is biased to that type of degree? Okay, how can it feel good to talk to someone? It feels only good if I talk to someone who is willing to hear other people's perspectives and who is open enough to hear someone out, to hear the other person's perspective, or to hear stories from other people's perspective. And maybe do some brainstorming, do some presenting of different experiences. That's what actually the very beginning of religion was about, religio, which meant people bring their information to the table in the evening. They learn something during the day and they bring it to the table in the evening, and then the group talks about it. Also, they talk about it in terms of how to make the community a better place. Is there any criticism? Is there anything that needs to be revised? Do we need to look at something in more depth? Can we weigh things off? Can we find out how we fix this or that problem, including psychology? And people get to talk, not just about philosophy, but also they get to talk about how they felt. Okay, that was the original Democratia in Greece. Okay, the beginning of what we call democracy is like the demos is the folk, is the community. Okay, and we get together. Every single individual being gets together and they put their information on the table, including how they feel, and then we can evaluate it. How could they evaluate anything and fix a community if everyone comes with their complete hardened and fixated and crystallized and stagnated point of view of me right, the other wrong, me victim, the other one is perpetrator, never looking at my own faults, never looking at the whole picture from above, always blaming the other? How can a society fix anything like this? You tell me. They can't. Okay. What we have right now in U.S. politics, but not just U.S. politics, you see it in Canada even more. I don't even want to use the word progress, right? So, because then it gets misunderstood. It has marched forward in the wrong direction, like progress into the wrong direction even further. That's where Canada is. That's where England is. That's where Sweden is. That's where entire European Union is. Okay, there are some Eastern European countries that want no part of that because they're smarter. They're on average 30 points smarter than the average Westerner. Why? Because, and here this is really important information, because during the Soviet Union they knew better with nutrition, and they knew better with leaving nobody on the street, leaving no child behind, but in the true sense, not in the fake sense like George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. They really left nobody behind. Okay, they outlawed drugs. They outlawed drug cartels. They outlawed all of these things. They outlawed even harmful pharma drugs. Okay, why do you think that the West was so opposed to communism? Because they were afraid, not because of the ideology. They were afraid that the communism, if it makes sense to more people, to surrounding neighboring countries, and they take up on that as well, and they start implementing these types of things gradually as well, then if that spreads, and if holistic healing practices, as practiced during the Soviet Union, I found all of that out later, much later. In the beginning, I had no idea. Okay, so I didn't even know about this while I went to a very socialist-oriented school where I did my graduation. So, but that school was already in the beginning stages of woke sickness. So that doesn't go well either. That's not going anywhere. So I am neither there nor there. I am looking at it from above. I see, I'm a cherry picker. I see, oh, here Here are some things we can learn from the Soviet Union. Here are some things that when Western countries started to get into it, or specific schools got into it, they misunderstood that altogether. They didn't even listen very well. And they just, if they hear them say, oh, it's better to lean a little bit more left, they'll just fall left all the way over to the ground. And I'm using this as a bad metaphor, but to get into the details more, it's like when they hear Karl Marx and they go like, yeah, this is opposed by the right-wingers, thus we have to be on the side of Karl Marx, without even thinking about why Karl Marx talked about this or this or this or this or warned about this. Okay, I think Karl Marx, during his time, they didn't have foreigners in their country. I mean, there would be one foreigner outnumbered by 1 million Russians or 1 million Polish people, right? So there was no risk of wokeness. So when you live in a specific era in history or in a specific country and they have only these type of people or these type of people or those type of people, and they have learned this from this type of school, then they may only see the problems that occur in their particular society, and they don't think any further. They don't think into the future or extrapolate on what sickness of mental development and sociological development can possibly unravel down the drain, right? I mean, they don't think about any of these possible scenarios with being flooded by immigrants from cultures that are 500 years back in time. They were only concerned with, okay, how do we fix it? And they go from the basis of their particular behavior and their particular reasoning and moral reasoning and so on. They used to not even lock their doors in Sweden in the past. They never locked a bicycle. Children could walk to school, picking flowers on the way. Why has that changed? Why is Sweden now one of the most dangerous countries in the world? Because of immigration. There, it is right there in your face, okay? This is a fact, okay? I am not a right-winger. I am not a Hitlerian. I am not into Karl Dönitz. To me, Karl Dönitz and Adolf Hitler are toys, okay, that I play with. This has been hyped into some kind of horror film character, which started out to be just a hand puppet or something of some sort, right? Pretty harmless, actually. There were some very dangerous people in Germany that abused that system to have power over others. Of course, there's no doubt about it, okay? But the people all the way on the top, I don't even think they were that consciously aware of where this would go, a totalitarian dictatorship. Even if it starts out to mean well or be ideological in some sort. And they were, believe it or not, okay, they were ideologists. But they underestimate the people that are then becoming executioners. And believe it or not, they hired people, those people that they were even opposed to. They hired criminals and they hired psychopaths to become the executioners because no one else would do it. So then what they end up with is another system of a tyrannical dictatorship, even if the people on the very top think tank mean well. If let's say I am an animal rights activist, which I am, and I become a dictator, that's a very utopian idea. Okay, first of all, that could never happen. I don't see how it could happen. Okay, unless I am being catapulted into that situation with the help of others, or if I have enough energy to go out with some kind of loudspeaker and give ardent speeches as Adolf Hitler did, which were hate speeches, and I don't believe in that. So there's no way. I am neither a Hitlerian nor a Stockholmer. I can't support or endorse any form of violence from anyone. It wouldn't matter who it is. Just because they have been suppressed in the past by those people, and now people think they need to be hook, line, and sinker with those people because they have been suppressed in the past, then that becomes another dictatorship. That becomes another tyrannical, violent dictatorship, and it just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling in the same pattern over and over and over again. And the public worldwide, they do not pay attention because it's this lopsided, blind-sided view of my ego, my people. You're back in the same loop. Okay. As soon as you say my people, you're back in the same freaking loop that you accuse other people of being in. If you become a vocus and you say we need to sacrifice us white people to them because they have been brutalized or whatever, you're looping into the same. You will get killed also, by the way, by those people that you're trying to help, which happened in numerous instances. Okay, and they just laugh about those people. I mean, they're like, oh, are they retarded? That they must be retarded to help the psychopaths, right? I mean, the psychopaths even say that. Okay, so they call them Dow boys and stuff like that. I mean, they have no respect for those people that are catering to them with their wokeness. No respect at all. They have no respect for life in general, those people. But they cry a lot about their injustices that happened a long time ago, and I'm sure there were a lot of injustices, but the injustices that happened towards black people that are the absolute worst, and this is a fact, no, those were committed by Nigerian slaveholders, and they were as black as the sea. I am not exaggerating, okay? This is the truth, okay? It was the Nigerian slaveholders, and that has gone on for thousands of years. And nobody talks about it. No one talks about it. Until some white fisher people or sailors came over, visiting there, and here comes the Nigerian slaveholders. I have no agenda. Here I have 100 slaves. I will trade with you. They wouldn't even have to hide it. It was all legal. So yeah. The sailor says, okay, because they've never been taught ethics, he says, okay, I'll buy these. I buy 50 of them. And then he takes them on his ship and takes them across the ocean. Let's say to Brazil. Okay. And then many of them have probably been treated bad, but not near as bad as they have been treated by the Nigerian slaveholders. The Blue God agrees. 4444. That's the truth. I'm not making this up. This is the truth. It is the truth. It's a historic truth. Okay. Nobody talks about it because that doesn't fit in with their storyline of ego and self and me, myself, and I, and we, our people, my people have suffered, and you, the racists. No, they are every bit as racist as the others and more, and every bit as violent and more. That's a fact. Okay, I'm just giving facts here. In Sweden, there are no-go zones. You can't even enter into certain districts anymore as a white person. You get killed. Is this the future you dream about? I don't know. If it isn't, then I have a ticket for you. I have a solution. One solution that you can start with, at least. Don't vote for the same criminals that want to create no-go zones and public rape scenarios. Don't do it anymore. Okay. Vote for the person who wants to fix all of this. Vote for the person who wants to rescue the innocent. Vote for the person who wants to make this country safe again. And that's Donald Trump. Peace and love.